Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Ion Radio. This is the Backseat Admiral, and I'm John. If you're in the chat, just let me know if the mic sounds good and everything like that. I'm going to just keep going on, though. Today is October 3rd, 2022, and we're going to be going over the list, start of Season 5. This is Season 5, Episode 1. So we're doing things very different for Season 5 compared to our other seasons, just in the way we make and play our lists. Thanks, Ken. Ken's here in chat, and sound is good. And welcome the new guy here. Welcome. And Joshua Jacobs is here as well. So welcome aboard, everyone. So like I was saying, we're doing something different for Season 5. What we're doing is we had, a couple of months ago, all of our Patreon members got a chance to enter lists, and then we opened it up to our Discord members and YouTube members for list submitting. So we had enough then to fill an entire season with just user-submitted lists. So after getting all the lists, I made matchups with them to make sure that the matchups were at least something interesting. Because we actually got a lot of, like, almost the same list across the board for some of them. And I'm like, I have to find good matches for both of these. And then when we went to play the matches, I would be like, Ken, which list do you want to play? Do you want to play, like, today? Do you want to play Ozzel? Do you want to be Ularn? This is a very brief description of them. And then he would pick, and then we would set up, and then we would play it. So that, they're both just cool list from people submitting them, and then we get to get them both on screen. So that's kind of what we were doing for Season 5, so should be fun to see how it all unfolds. So hopefully you guys are all doing good. Today we're going to be talking about the Admiral Ozzel versus Admiral Ularn lists. The Admiral Ozzel list is brought to us by Birdie Wooster. And the Admiral Ularn list is, I'm going to butcher this the entire time, so I apologize. Plugen. I'll probably say it differently every single time. He brought us the Ularn list. So let's just get to it. If you guys have any comments or thoughts on the game or the list or questions that you want me to answer, doesn't even have to be about the game, just in general about Armada and things like that, go ahead and hit it up in the comments, and I will get to it. So here we go. Let's start. So we're going to start with the Plugen list first, which is Admiral Ularn. And as you can see here, it is a 4 Pelta list. And I've been saying this for a while. Specifically, the Gar Pelta is one of my favorite ships in the entire game. Actually, I just like Peltas in general. It doesn't even matter what variety. I enjoy flying the Peltas. So it's a Pelta list. It has a bunch of arcs. It has an Anakin, Ahsoka, and then I believe it's Axe Squadron. We made a mistake. When we saw that it was Anakin, we just assumed that it was going to be Delta Anakin. So we played it as Delta Anakin. But technically, the list is for Y-Wing Anakin. It fits with the points. So technically, we're Windows wants to update. Got to snooze that. So technically, this is not a legal list because it has 139 points of squadrons instead of the 134. Y-Wing Anakin fits in perfectly. If you want to use Delta 7 Anakin, you got to find a place to get points, and that would be dropping Axe from being an ace down to just a generic V19, and then it fits fine. So you can make it work with either one of Anakin's. You just can't use the extra ace and Anakin. It's a little bit too much for the points. So let's go to the list itself. So they're Pelta class medical frigates, and there's Admiral Ularn. Admiral Ularn's special is that if you spend a token, you can activate one additional squadron. So a token is worth 2, in essence. And then for engineering, he gains the ability to spend 2 engineering points To choose a friendly squadron at distance 1 to 3, that squadron recovers 1 hull point. So you can heal squadrons, which is good, and then he also can activate 2 squadrons with a token, which is actually really cool. So if you look at how many fighters he has, I believe he has 8 fighters, so that's 8. He has 4 peltas, so for 2 squadron each, he can activate his entire force, which means you could just use tokens. They have squad command too, so a token is actually by itself just as good as doing a squad command, like the dial. But if you combo it with the dial and the token, then you can do 4, and that's like half your forces. There's a lot of redundancy in this list, which is good, but also bad when you're just handed it your first time. I think I talked about this during the episode that, like, while playing, I know I was talking to Ken about it. I'm like, I just don't know what to do with my dials. And then after the game, I talked about it. This is one of those lists that it's a high skill ceiling, because if you can get it to run smoothly, it would run really well. But there's a lot of fiddly bits in it that make it a challenge to run. So if I were to do it again, I would probably do better with it. Obviously, that's usually how it works. But knowing how to set up your dials, like from build phase to playing it, I think is important with this, to know how you want your engineerings and basically your squads. That's all you're going to be doing the whole time. So clone navigational officers there. He can pass around con fire, nav, and squadron. So the squadron's the important part here. What's frustrating is I feel that I would really want to pass engineering around too. But so that's where the puzzle comes in. Like, I can take a squadron here and pass a squadron. But what I can't do is I can't take an engineering here and pass an engineering, which then leads to like how you want to do it. And like in the game, I ended up just some of the ships themselves using engineering to keep themselves alive instead of doing anything else. So you just have to have planning. Also, what's important for this list is the flight coordination team, which means that after you can move up to medium range, you can move a squadron distance 1. So that means if you really wanted to, you could like accelerate an arc from your side of the table pretty much all the way across the table into their deployment zone on turn 1 if you do it properly, which is crazy. But you get a lot of movement with that. And when you combine that with Ahsoka, we'll talk about this more when we get to Ahsoka, you can trigger Ahsoka multiple times like what I was doing in it. The flagship has boosted comms, so it can kind of stay in the background of everything and then activate squadrons farther away and keep your commander safe. The next is a Pelta-class medical frigate. You're going to see a bunch of almost copy-paste ships. This one has Clone Navigational Officer, Fighter Coordination Team, and Bomber Command Center. Bomber Command Center is really, really good due to the fact that all the arcs are bombers, so you're getting your money's worth out of Bomber Command Center here. The next one is Clone Navigational Officer and Flight Coordination Team. The third one is the one that's slightly different. It has Hondo, it has Flight Coordination Team, and Parts Resupply. Parts Resupply is where you can get those engineering tokens, and I just kept forgetting about it the entire game until like the very, very end. I would say, because the way Ken and I will film a lot of times, we'll talk what we're going to do so we can have the camera positioned to the right spot and things like that. And I would talk about it and then forget to do it. It's just happened every single time because there's just so many little parts that are moving around in this game. But so you can get like lots of tokens. You have a lot of redundancy. It's almost so when I've played Gar needs a lot of tokens, but they also have the ability to gain a lot of tokens. But you only can ever have like one token at a time. So then it becomes a timing of activation to get this token from here to there. So like a lot of times with spats, like you want to be using confire tokens to do other things, but you can't like rearm a spat and then also do intensify firepower and then also trigger clone gunnery teams because you only have one token. And the timing of when you can get past tokens to refresh things is an interesting thing. This is where it becomes a puzzle. And with it being a puzzle that I didn't build, just sitting down to do it was like very overwhelming at the time. So let's check out Squadron. So Anakin Skywalker, either or will work. Like I said, if you drop Axe down to a V19, then this combination's legal. And if you want to keep Axe, you can add Y-Wing Anakin, which is still pretty good because he has still Adept 2, which is needed for the Ahsoka shenanigans. So Ahsoka's power is after you move, you may choose another friendly squadron at distance 1. That squadron performs an attack against the squadron at distance 1 with an anti-squadron armament of 2 blue dice, even if you've already activated. So what that means is Anakin's Adept 2 means you can reroll both of those dice. And then with all those fighter coordination teams, you can theoretically trigger Ahsoka 5 times in one turn, which is a lot of times to be throwing dice with Anakin. And then even if he was attacking something that could counter him, like dodge Anakin like this is really good because you can just have your reroll and then you can scatter. And then you can flight coordination team him onto a station. The station and heal, and they can move all over the place and you can reposition them and Ahsoka just does whatever she wants. The rest of the squadrons are the ARC 170 starfighters, and there's 5 of them. So that means theoretically you could throw 10 blue dice with bomber command a turn against ships if they don't have squadrons. These were like 2 of the more heavy fighter lists that were submitted to us, so I kind of wanted to put them together because fighter versus fighter is what you'll see more than often, and you don't want, like, both of these lists would wreck anything that didn't have a full fighter cover, like wreck hard, because they're both very much so I can get my bombers in and I can get my bombers in quickly. Like 5 arcs is just crazy. Like if you go up against, let's say, just a Star Destroyer with the double blue dice and bomber command system, like even if you have PDIC, you're still taking damage every single turn. It's just a lot of damage that can happen. And then Peltas are super tanky and they stay way, way past their invitation point on the board. So it's a hard list to kill. This is actually one of Ken and I's longest games that we ended up playing just because we both had so many things on both of our sides that were moving around. So that's the list. I don't know really much how I would change it. I think there's a lot of redundancy, but you already have a 5-point bid, and I don't know what I would change to add in something different. Because everything kind of has a purpose, and clone navigational is useful in tossing things over. So maybe, I don't know, maybe adding 1 more parts resupply. And that sounds crazy, but then I don't have to worry about what I'm doing with my stuff. I can just concentrate on doing squadrons every single turn on every single one of my ships, and then use the parts resupply to give them engineering. And then when they start getting in danger, because, Peltas are only 2 command, I'll know when they're about to get in danger, and then I can switch them over to engineering and then send over squadron with the clone navigational officer. That's kind of my thought process. I have enough points to play with that. So maybe that, but for the most part, I can't really say I would change anything about this list. Because it doesn't, it has a lot of moving parts in game, but it doesn't, you have an officer flight coordination team, an officer flight coordination team bomber command, officer flight coordination, officer flight coordination parts resupply. There's actually not that much to it to change. So yeah, that's about it. So I'm gonna check out chat, and then we can check out the next list. Okay, Nathan asks, how do you feel this list would do against something with no squadrons? I kind of mentioned that. I think it would wreck it, just because of the double blue bomber on 5 squadrons that I can just right into your face immediately. And it looks like I need to deal with something. Remove. Okay. Getting spam. Look at me getting popular. That's about it. Is this list with a Vic replacing 2 of the Peltas significantly worse? I would say yes. And the reason for that is that The Pelta's power here is the fact that the Peltas take a long time to get killed, and a Vic actually dies quickly. The victory dies faster than a Pelta a lot of times because a Pelta has like as much, if not more, engineering than it. I think they both are at 4. The Pelta almost has as many shields as the victory. It has less hull, but the Pelta has an evade instead of the salvo. So you can reroll dice, you can cancel dice, you can brace, and you can redirect. And it's its own ship. So like if you look at the victory armament, pretty much you're throwing 3 red dice unless you let them get, or they let you get close to them, which they're not going to do. So your armament at long range is 3 red dice. So a Pelta actually by itself has almost as much firepower with 2 red dice and a blue dice than that. So 2 Peltas technically has more firepower than the Vic, and you can then split it up so then their defense tokens are less. This is one of the reasons why Peltas are so strong. Like, they have a lot of firepower for how small they are, and they're super, super tanky and don't want to die. So I would say keeping it how it is would be better. Also, to make the squads fit, you can just replace one of the arcs with a Y-wing, and you hit 334 exactly. You could, if you want to keep the ace. I guess that's another option. That's up to you. It still has Bomber Command there to help it out, and it's still tanky because it has 6 health. So you could do either or. Okay, let's check out this next list. So I'm kind of upset that I wasn't able to fly both these lists in the fleets, because they're both really interesting. This list is the Birdie list, and it is Admiral Ozzel. It has a very strange fighter grouping, which I kind of like because I've never seen a fighter grouping like this before, so it gives you some ideas on different ways to think. And let's just dive into it. So the flagship is a Gladiator II class Star Destroyer. It has Admiral Ozzel on it. Admiral Ozzel allows you to adjust speed, and you can do whatever else you want because you're moving up and down speed. It has Captain Brunson, which allows you to cancel dice, so it makes that tanky. It has Ruthless Strategist, which adds pretty well into the fact that the Gladiator has double blue dice. And because it has the demo title, if you can see it right here, what that allows you to do then is you can flak out your front, and then you can move and then flak out your side. I've done that before, and you can kill like squadron balls super, super fast, especially with the Ruthless Strategist on board if you want to. It has Fighter Coordination Team. Again, like both these fleets have fighter coordination, so you can move your fighters where you need them to be. External racks to just add that extra punch when you get in close. And then, like I said, the Demolisher title. The next ship is a Quasar Fire 2 class carrier. So what's important about that is you switch the blue dice to a red dice for flak, and then you get extra. I think Quasar is normally just blue dice, so now you get red dice out the front and the sides, which is a good increase of armament. You have Agent Callus, so when you're flacking, you can add another dice against aces. I feel Agent Callus's value has significantly gone down since the ace limit has been put in effect, which is obvious because there's less things to flak, but he was already like barely usable, and I feel now that there's less aces, he's just more of a risk because he does nothing for you against squadron light list really, and just aces in general, like he may or may not do extra damage. You have Ruthless Strategist here too, so now you have 2 sources of Ruthless Strategist. So if you can trap someone in a Ruthless Strategist flak ball with demo and this, you can do like with demo, flak out the front, Ruthless, 1 damage. Flak out the side, Ruthless, 2 damage. Use the Quasar, flak at long range, 3 damage automatically by Ruthless scene plus whatever you got with flak, which could add up to a lot. Then you have Squall, so you can reposition. So there's 2 sources of Ruthless, and 2 sources of squad movement before they get engaged, which means that you can move a significant amount of your fighters to get them into position. The next ship is a Raider 1 class Corvette. It has Darth Vader, external racks, and Corvus. The nice thing about Corvus is you can plop Corvus down, drop all your fighters because there's a ton of them, and then deploy the rest of your fleet to be exactly where you need it to be. Also, this is Darth Vader Boarding Trooper, which might be the first time we've had it on the channel. Not positive. Maybe... I think I used it Season 1 and to strip off like an ECM or something like that, but like we've rarely seen him. A lot of times you just see me playing either Darth Vader Commander or Darth Vader Officer to chuck your officers out the window to get a reroll. Last ship is a Gazanti class cruiser, and it has Bomber Command because you got a ton of TIE bombers, so you can use it to help get you more points. So here's the squadron. Like I said, it's a weird grouping. It has Merrick Steele because he's the best Imperial squadron. Valen Rudor. You can't attack Valen if he's around other squadrons, even if those squadrons are heavy. So what's awesome about him is he can just live inside of the rest of the squadrons. So like there's a ton of TIE bombers and like a Lambda Shuttle, and he can just sit there and use them as meat shields while he does whatever he wants inside the ball, hitting you with 3 black dice every single turn. It's nice. So here's the squads. There is 1 fire spray, which is okay-ish at attacking squadrons. It has 3 blues, but it has bomber 2 blue dice, which is pretty good, and rogue, so you can just get it to where you want to and then attack. This is a Lambda Shuttle. Almost all of your squadrons, or all of your ships have 2 squadron value, except for the Quasar. So you can use that to relay or control a token. He has 2 YV-66-6. I think this is the first time we've ever had them on the channel, and they're pretty good. The problem, though, is they're crazy slow. But that's why you have Squall and the flight coordination team to move them up and into position that you need them. They have 7 hull, so they're not going to go anywhere quickly. I mean, if you look at it, they're almost like an anti-squadron version of the Ark, right? So they hit like a TIE Defender with 4 dice, 2 blues, 2 blacks, and then they have a blue dice for bombing. Non-bomber, so it's only 50%, so it's not great. But it is grit, so they can move around just being engaged by 1. They have heavy. It is what it is. And then they have rogue, so you can push them with Squall and then activate them during the squadron phase, so you don't need commands. And there's 2 of them. And then you have 4 TIE bomber squadrons. So you have here 6 hull, 6 hull, 2 7 hulls, and 4 5 hulls. So that means you have 20, 32, 46 hull damage that you can use with Ruthless. That's a lot of Ruthless power. So that's the list. So you have the YV-666 and Valen and Merrick that can do a lot of punching for anti-squadron. And then you have the Quasar and the Demo that can do the flacking to kill all the squadrons. And then after that, they can just all switch over with the TIE Bomber and the Fire Spray into bombing. Yikes. So if you can get through their fighter screen, they're going to die. There's just a lot of damage output here for shooting into ships. What would I change in this list? I would change probably... I've already talked bad about Kalis, so let's say we get rid of him. And then we need 3 more points for what I want. So looking at this, we could either drop to Iden and keep Brunson, and that saves us a few points. Or I'd probably drop Fighter Coordination Team off of the Gladiator. Even though you can move the squadrons, like you got Squall to do that. And then you put flight controllers on the Quasar. And one of the reasons to do flight controllers on the Quasar instead of Kalis is your anti-squadron get increased by 1, so you get 4 extra dice, regardless of what type of squadron there are. And then Mark hits harder. Valen gets the option of getting a blue dice so that he can possibly roll into an accuracy so that his black dice too can stick against scatter. What's more interesting about that is fire sprays become 4 dice, which is pretty good. Lambdas become a blue double black, so you can use it in offense. And then TIE bombers are black blue, and black blue 4 dice bomber is pretty good because you're probably going to get locked down by someone, and then that Quasar can just make their life miserable by almost guaranteeing getting hit by 1 damage by the TIE bombers. So I would like Flight Controller probably over Agent Callus and Flight Coordination teams. Throw them out, and then add Flight Controllers to the Quasar. It just helps push that squadron damage a little bit more compared to Agent Callus is only going to be really hitting aces. So that gives you a way around aces in case you run into something with no aces. And then the less flight coordination team here, with Squall you can still move 3. It can't be engaged, but you can still move them. And really you're only looking to move the what are they called? YV 6600s. So move them and then activate them with the Quasar to get them where you want them, and then Flight Controller with them. And I think it just hits a little bit harder that way than having Agent Callus. So that's really the only change I make to it for the most part. They're 2 very, very unique lists, and I like them both. And like I said, I wish I could fly both of them. So if you have any comments about any of that, post it down below. And then we'll get into the fleet makeup or breakdown next of how it flies and what the strategy was for it and everything like that. I really like the objectives that we played with on the Ularn side of things. So I'm going to talk about those in a minute when we go to start up the game discussion. I'll look up real fast what the other ones were. Looks like I'm getting spam phone calls. Gotta love election time. Okay, that's down here. So Birdie's objectives were precision strike, firing lanes, and sensor net. I feel that precision strike is good because he has a lot of bombers. Firing lanes is interesting, and I don't know if that's necessarily something that I would like. You have one source of strategic with the Lambda, so some of that's going to be left up to chance. And like if you had a big ship that came in, they can easily bully you off of it, and as long as they can lock your Lambda down, then those tokens aren't moving. And then sensor net, it's going to be hard to do with just one Lambda. Like you can squall it around to move the Lambda, so you just then basically think you can get I guess that's where the fighter coordination team comes into effect with that. You could probably get 2-ish tokens a turn with it, maybe 3. And then you do that for like 2-3 turns before they get to you and lock you down. So those are the objectives with that list. Firing lanes and sensor team, I might want just something else. But again, not my list, so I didn't design it. So I don't know how it works in your head, because usually when I build a list, I think about how all my objectives would play out. So I'm sure something like that took place when it was designed. So the spam is getting you from every angle. I know, right? Like, I get it on the channel, and I get, like, the other day, I think I got, like, 7 text messages of, oh my gosh, we need your money. I'm like, I never signed up for anything political. So I don't know why anyone has my number to send me stuff. I don't want to send you money. Oh no, I guess whatever you're telling me I need to send money for is going to happen. Here. And then this is getting spam, and I get spam phone calls. Man, they're hunting me down. Can we speak to you about your car warranty? You should have a bonus episode where you choose your favorite list from the season. I think that would be too soon to play it. Ken and I have talked about it would be fun to go back and play some of our early lists and things like that, because 1.5 changes so much, and if you look at our early episodes, some of those outcomes would be very, very different now than then. And then even like when we look at like our very first Rebellion in the Rim campaign, like the evade changes so much, like because I was like a B-wing heavy bomber list, and Ken had no defense against it because point defense ion cannons weren't around yet, and then you can't even re-roll evades. So I would roll up to like a raider, because Ken had like a decent like split of like raiders and architens and I would say gladiators. I don't think he had the demo title, but I would just roll up with B-wings and just right through it, because like a raider before this evade change, the only useful token that it has is a brace. So if I get 2 damage with my B-wings against it, it can brace it to 1. But a lot of times with all of the broken commander abilities with Rebellion in the Rim, I'm rolling 3 damage against it. So brace 3 to 2 so you don't die instantly. And then I hit you again, and then you throw out your brace. So like 3 B-wings could wipe out a raider in a single turn. Like, it was gross. But with evade change, that would drastically change that. So we very much so have thought about going back and choosing favorite lists and things like that. That's an awesome idea. Each pick their favorite lists and get to tweak them, then they battle. I don't know about tweaking. Let's just make sure they're legal and then just throw them again and see what we would do differently. Because we talk about what we would do differently all the time. See if it actually takes place. Speaking of favorite things and favorite episodes, Ken and I are looking for favorite moments. We have something planned coming up soon. So if you could there's a thread in general on our Discord that you can post that to. And then I think there's also a Facebook post. If you go back in our Facebook postings, I forget what Facebook calls them. Community posts, I think. Yeah, I think community posts. And we have a question out there. So if there are favorite episodes that you're like, I really, really like this list, or I would like to see this list tweaked, or I really like this moment, or I really enjoyed this, you could post it there, and that would help us out. Okay, let's check out the rest of this. Okay, so these were the objectives for the Ularn list. Precision strike, lots of bombers, awesome. That's a lot of tokens that you can use. Fleet and bean, and then hyperspace migration. So I really, really like fleet and bean here. And the reason for that is Peltas, like I just said, already stay past their welcome because they're super, super tanky and hard to kill. Fleet and bean means that they each get 2 tokens. And if you're not stupid like I am and deploy and immediately lose one, that means you can refresh 2 of your tokens in an attack round so that you can stay around longer. And you can see that's what I did. Like, it kind of would attack me, and then I would like evade and brace and redirect. And then when he declared the next one, I would just refresh whatever token I think I would need. And then I could keep doing that. And because he would attack me a lot of times, and I would have been out of tokens like midway through that game round. But Fleet and Bean allowed me to keep around. Like, holding on to tokens to the end of the game isn't my concern with this fleet. I'm going to use them to stay alive, and if I hold on to them at the end of the fleet, no, that's great. But it doesn't really matter. So I really like that objective. It's not an objective that you see a lot of times, but I think it works really, really well with this fleet. And then hyperspace migration is basically I will travel sideways across the board and farm tokens the entire time. And those tokens add up really fast. And to get to me, you have to move through my ARC 170 swarm, which isn't pleasant. So there's that. So I think that all this is a really good objective for these fleets. So Ken went with Fleet and Bean, and I think that's Fleet and Bean is probably the best choice because Precision Strike you can farm a lot, and Hyperspace Migration you can farm a lot too. So I think this is the best for not getting farmed to death, but it makes it very difficult for you to stay alive or to kill my ships, which then gives me points because my ships are on the table for longer. So that's just something to weigh in effect because this card's power isn't from scoring you points, it's from just keeping your ship straight up alive. Okay, so let's check out this battle. There are some pictures missing, which, oops, we've either missed it, but like a lot of times, like in this game specifically, we were both like very much so concentrating on all of our little triggers because there's so many triggers going on for both of our fleets. And we just missed taking a picture. I think we have 2 pictures of the first round and then nothing after that. So if you can see here, we'll talk about my deployment first. I decided drop a Pelta, drop all my fighters, drop the other Peltas, and then I was going to have the flagship like come behind because it has the boosted comms to command fighters. And as soon as we went to start the turn, I'm like, ugh, I made such a mistake. I'm going to immediately lose one of my tokens because there's no way that I'm going to clear out of my deployment zone in time. Going I think I was going speed 2, but even speed 2 is only going to land me like right here, still solidly in the deployment zone. So I'm going to lose a token. That's dumb. And then just the way I have these, like this one I think is Bomber Command all the way out on the side here. That needs to be closer to the middle. I would redo this entire deployment if I had a chance to do it over again, is what I told Ken right after deploying. I'm like, this is not, none of my ships are where I want them to be. It ends out working out because they're all pretty much the same, but like to actually have them where they need to be would have been a lot more useful. Ken has Corvus down, so he could drop all of his fighters. Quasar is off to the side over here. Demo and the Gazanti. Both of these have the Ruthless. And so being second player, got to put station down first. That's where the station's right here. I plan on using the station to obstruct as much of this flak as possible and try to keep my stuff alive. It also gives me a central point that I can bounce Ahsoka off of so that she can just stay on the station, constantly move, constantly be flight coordinated and teamed to where she needs to be so she can trigger Anakin. And then here's the exact same picture again, but now if you notice, I've put out my speed and my command dials, so we wanted to document that. Turn 1. I have completely taken over the station so that Ken can't land anything on it. And the goal there is so that Ken can't land anything on it, so then I have control over it, and he doesn't. He's moving his fighters around in multiple areas, and this is something that we've talked about before. If you're going against someone that's going to try to kill your squadron ball, a lot of times if you divide up your fighters between like bombers and anti-squadron into 2 different type of clumps, that forces them to choose which one to go against. So then you can, like if they go after your bombers, then you get the alpha strike basically into their fighters with your anti-squadron. And if they go after your anti-squadron, that means your bombers have free reign to just go against a ship. Like it's a win-win. So Ken's separating his stuff, and because my stuff's really slow, it's going to be very difficult for me to go to both sides to keep it locked down. And that's what you see. Basically, Ken gets free reign that first turn of getting his fighters in where he wants. But I'm kind of fine with that because I'm planning on staying on my side of the board for a while and just Ahsoka-ing things dead. If I were to replay this, I think I would only go speed 1 because I got into combat pretty fast. And even my escape route is going pretty fast. I think a slower, steadier would be better. I think this is where we have the picture missing, because then all of a sudden things are gone. So on this next turn, this Quasar moves up, and because these 3 fighters here moved against this Pelta, it left me a fighter way that I could just move all of my Architens off of the station and attack the Quasar. The Quasar went down super, super fast from all the blue dice that was thrown against them. And then like the Peltas being able to just throw 1 red dice. Like that's where like Pelta power actually really, really comes in, is like if you can get your dice to hit, like take a crit. Okay, cool. I'm going to attack you again. Take another crit. Cool. That's not fun. And so like it's that one, it's like the knife cuts, especially after you get hit by like, here, take 4 attacks from arcs, which are probably mostly 2 damage. Like you're going to burn through your tokens or have no shields. And then you get hit by like just 1 point of damage at red range with a Pelta. It's just super annoying. Because what do? Do you spend your redirect to just block 1 damage? That's a poor use of a redirect, unless it's a crit, and then like you're using up your tokens. And I think Ken got hit by the unfortunate crit that he couldn't use exhausted tokens. So even if he had them, I think if this might be the game that he hit with, you can't use exhausted tokens and you can't refresh your tokens, which happens to Ken, I think, way more than like it goes structural, and then that combo of cards he gets hit by all the time. So at the start of the next turn, that Quasar's gone. It activates first to do its thing. And it actually does quite a bit of damage, because the Quasar 2 actually is a decent anti-ship if you get into medium range, because it hits pretty hard. But you can see Ken has moved in. This Pelta, super, super damaged, has 1 health. Right before this, there's the Raider that gets trapped, because this happened last turn. The Raider gets trapped right here, and they just have a showdown of neither of them want to really kill each other, and they're both left on like 1 health, which is kind of funny. The fighters are doing their thing. I have Anakin. Anakin finished up the aces over here. I'll jump back so you can see. So these squadrons came in to here, and then Anakin just comes off the station, and he basically kills Jendon 1 health at a time. Not Jendon. Steel. 1 health at a time, using Ahsoka shenanigans with all the Peltas shifting her around to just have him attack. And once he's done with that, he needs to go engage the rest of the fighter ball. And you can see here in this position here, I have this YV and this fire spray tied down here. I think he just came in and he killed another YV that was here. So like he came in and he's just here with Ahsoka to clean up squadrons to let the arcs fly around and do what they need to do. There was this TIE bomber that was here for like way too long. I think we counted like it took me 14 attack dice to kill it when it got to 1 health. Like crazy bad luck with dice. Like fighter moves in, attack, all blanks. Fighter moves in, attacks, all blanks. Fighter moves in with reroll, all blanks. Ahsoka says kill it, doesn't kill it. Ahsoka says kill it, doesn't kill it. Ahsoka says kill it, doesn't kill it. Flack says I'm going to try to kill it, doesn't kill it, and then finally it dies. But it took an absurd amount of time to kill this thing. So, yep, everything starts moving away. I'm preparing to do... I don't have enough damage to kill this Gladiator. If I was moving slower, I might be able to with boosted comms. But we have like 1 actual turn. So I ended up ramming myself to keep this ship where it was so that I can be in range to activate these squadrons. And we're going to go try to kill a Gazanti. There's a chance. If one of my attacks didn't come up as blanks, it would have been just fine. But at this point, I've pretty much finished out all of Ken's fighters and just barely don't kill the Gazanti. So let's see if there's anything that's interesting here. At the end of the game, arcs are pretty fine. Axe dies because she protected a ship. I lost a Pelta, and the rest of the Peltas are kind of just like slightly beaten down, but nothing crazy. And I actually maintained a lot of my tokens. And we'll jump to the end. Killed all of Ken's fighters, and then killed the Quasar. As you can see, all the tokens gone from it. And then killed the Raider, just punched through the front. And this is what we were talking about earlier when I was talking about how before evade and everything like that, like you could just kill a Raider like that, especially in that Rebellion in the Rim game that like here's 3 Y-Wings with auto rerolls plus bomber command because of abilities and shenanigans and things like that, all of a sudden hitting you, and you only have a brace. The first one does 3 damage. You brace it to 2, no shields in the front. The second one does 3 damage. You throw out your brace, take a crit, Ken takes a structural, and then the next one just kills it. Like, the evade change super changes how ships function. Was really close to killing this thing, but it wasn't able to. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the game. It was an exhausting game just because we both had so many like fighters can move here and do this, and activation order really mattered, and like activation order already mattered, and then like I had to like think about what I had as my commands on my ships to activate certain places to pass tokens or keep tokens or heal. I think I only used the Ularn like repair ability once because most of the time I was trying to keep my ships alive, not my fighters. But I used the token special ability a ton, and it worked really well with this. So that's pretty much the game. Let's pull up the score. There we go. Ken killed a Pelta and Axe. I killed off Quasar, Radar, all of his fighters for 257. And then I ended with 3 of my ships still having tokens, so 45 points. So MOV of 221 and 9-2. So yeah, that's about it for that. Both of these, like, I know Plagen has talked about he plays this list at tournaments. I don't know if I would bring this to a tournament. I think it would do really well because it's hard to kill all the parts, so it's hard to table you. It can maintain you on the board with a board presence very well, and if you get that super lucky, like someone doesn't bring squadrons and then you just wreck them, you can score a lot of points. I just don't know if I would have, like, I would probably have to practice it a lot, but there's a lot of moving parts of moving fighters around and doing things like that, and I don't know if I would have like the brain power to play like a 4-round tournament with this. It would do well, but I just don't know if I would be able to concentrate and do it. Because there's a lot of movement and a lot of fighter stuff going on with it. But you could probably do it. It just would be exhausting. And then I would still like to try the other list, mainly because of Ruthless. I am really, honestly, a complete sucker for Ruthless Squadrons, or Ruthless Strategists. And I think that coming up against someone that hasn't really faced Ruthless before, or just fully engages your Squadron Ball inside of your Ruthless placard, because I intentionally avoided that, and that's why I went so hard against the Quasar. Because I kind of blocked my fighters from getting demoed from the side buy demo with Ruthless because I didn't want that to happen. So I knew that I had to kill the red squad or red anti-squadron Quasar really, really fast. So I went hard against the Quasar fast. Not because it could push squadrons, but mainly because of the Ruthless ability. Like, it could do so much damage against fighters. So I would enjoy trying that list too. So let me know if you guys think anything differently or have any questions about the different types of lists. I think this is, like, you've seen a lot recently of Anakin on the channel because I've been using him and Ahsoka pretty well, I would say, in our Rebellion in the Rim campaign. And he's very powerful. And with like coordination teams, you can just bounce them around like crazy to keep getting that power. That's why one of the reasons why that ability, Anakin's ability, only works when he activates. Because could you imagine him triggering, like, what would that be? He activates, Ahsoka activates, and then Ahsoka activates 4 more times, so you could theoretically do Anakin's special ability 6 times in one turn. Like, he's already powerful. It doesn't need to be any better. So I think that's good. So oh Murdican, I know he really is. And the thing is, you can still pretty much do this with Y-Wing Anakin too. And Y-Wing Anakin, when he's just done messing around with someone, he can just peace out by using his ability. Or you can move him in, and then you can target someone regardless if it's aged. Like, I could hit Valen with Anakin if I really wanted to, and just ignore all the other squadrons around him. Both of Anakin's are really good. I think Delta is better, but it's crazy. Yeah, that's 12 free damage if he wasn't locked to activate. Yeah. Crazy. He would just keep triggering. So big shout out and thank you to all of our Patreon members and to the 2 people that submitted lists, Birdie Wooster and Plagen. Thank you very much. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching your lists played. I would say that these are 2 of the harder lists that we have the whole season. So it was very brain taxing for both Ken and I to play these. But we both enjoyed the list. So I think later this week, our episode this week will be, I want to say it's going to be, let me check. I don't have a spoiler picture for you guys. I didn't transfer it to this. But I want to say it's going to be a Moff Jerjerrod versus Martuk list. Jerjerrod is on an SSD, and then Martuk is just Martuk. So that should be an interesting list for you guys coming up. So I think I'm going to call it here and head to bed. I know it's early, but my kid is very, very active, and he likes to wake up at like 5 in the morning and then just, hi guys, I'm up. What you gonna do with me? And we're like, we want to sleep. And he's wide awake, wanting to run around. So got to get ahead of that. So we have a Rebellion in the Rim coming out this week, and then our standard episode later on. We released a brand new command stack episode. So if you listen to podcasts, you can listen to it on whatever you want to listen to your podcast on. We're on all the major ones. Or you can watch it, and if you want to watch it, actually, you can watch it on our YouTube channel as well. So make sure to check that out. I'm not part of it this time. It's just Ken, Ryan, and Garrett. I was busy doing other things that night. So they were talking about Nova and the lists that were in Nova and things like that. So it's still a very good episode, so you should check it out. I think I'm going to call it here. So thank you very much for tuning in, everyone. I will see you next week. This is Backseat Admiral and Ion Radio, and I'm John, and thank you for watching.